Well, we want to welcome everyone to Shadows in the Dark, and I am not sure what's going on, but it looks like we may be experiencing some technical difficulties here on Blog Talk Radio. So we're just kind of see if we can iron that out a little bit. I know part of the switchboard's messed up. Seems like the site's running a little slow, and I am sure that they are right on top of it. So if you could just bear with us a little bit as this kind of works out. And quite honestly, I'm really not even sure if we're broadcasting. It says we're connecting to our live show. I had a little bit of difficulties even dialing in. So let's just, like I said, just kind of bear with us, and we'll see if everything's kind of running, if everything gets to running smooth here. I'm going to get in touch with the live support and see what's going on. So, like I said, just hang tight with us. We normally have some people in the chat room. Nobody's there, so I'm not sure if that's kind of down too, and I just happened to squeeze in there. The switchboard, like I said, the switchboard just didn't even, I'm only seeing half of it, so we are going to make sure to get this thing up and running smooth, because I am excited about tonight's show with our guest, Dr. William Bradshaw. We're going to be talking about some demonology here, and it looks like maybe things are starting to slowly come back up. I'm going to check a few things here before we really get started. Here we go. We're starting to see some people kind of mosey on in the chat room, and we've got Jamie. I want to thank you, Jamie, for joining us there, and maybe she can let us know if we are actually broadcasting, because we're just not really sure at this point due to some difficulties that were showing up there. And once we kind of get confirmation, we are going to get this thing started. And I'm going to just double check here to make sure that everything is kind of up and running. Like I said, seems like a lot of difficulty, especially with the switchboard. It looks like it's kind of clearing up a little bit. Every time it refreshes, it takes it a while. And I'm kind of waiting to hear back from Jamie there. I think we already have our guest on the line. So if Mr. Bradshaw, if you'll just kind of hang on with us there, you're muted out right now. But all right, so we do. Jamie is saying she can hear the show, so we're going to get this thing rolling here. We're always, like always, I'm going to play our theme music here. So I want to welcome everyone to Shadows in the Dark. So we're going to get it started.
Shadows in the Dark.
All right, like I said, you are listening to Shadows in the Dark here, and let me apologize as we're kind of off to a little bit of a slow start, and it seems if you're just tuning in, Blog Talk is having a little bit of issues, so just bear with them as they work on those. They are always on top of things, but so we're going to get kind of started as quick as we can here, but as usual, we're going to start off with a few news stories. I did have quite a bit, but I think we're going to cut that short just so we can go ahead and get into our show tonight. But first, coming out of Italy, it seems a single-horned unicorn deer was found in Italy. It says a deer with a single horn in the center of its head, much like the unicorn, has been spotted in a nature preserve in Italy. Park officials reported this past Wednesday. Gilberto Tozia, the director of the Center of Natural Sciences in Prato, told the Associated Press, "This is a fantasy becoming reality. The unicorn has always been a mythological animal." The one-year-old roe deer, which was born in captivity in the Research Center's park in the Tucson town of Prato near Florence, is nicknamed Unicorn. Well, rightfully so. It is believed that it was born with a genetic flaw because his twin does have two horns. So a very interesting little story there. So I guess that kind of gives a little bit of credibility to the whole unicorn myth because, I mean, here we are with an animal, and it's very possible that in the past other animals were born like this and maybe had some kind of genetic flaw and thus was birthed the myth of the unicorn. So let's see. Here was another interesting story. Let me find it here. Well, where did it go? All right, here we go. It seems that Doritos, the tortilla chips, has kind of opened up the door for a new type of advertising program. So it seems that they sent an advertisement out into space, which broadcast over a 6-hour period, and it was used through high-powered radars into the Arctic Circle broadcast, which was the first time this has been done. Now, it was being directed towards a solar system in the Ursa Major constellation, just 42 light years from Earth, and the solar system contains a habitable zone and can host an Earth-like planet and extraterrestrial life. So we're starting to shoot some advertisement up into space. So I guess if we ever do have an alien invasion, their first stop will be the convenience store to buy a bag of Doritos. All right, so we're going to... I apologize. My switchboard just dropped off again. So let's take a quick little minute break if I can find my way to that. And as soon as we come back, we're going to be talking about demonology with Dr. William Bradshaw and some about his latest novel, Sinister Among Us. So stay with us. Don't go anywhere, and bear with us as we get through these difficulties. We're going to be back in just a moment. All right, Dr. William Bradshaw's career experiences as an ordained minister, college president, college chief financial officer, and fundraising specialist provide credibility for the events in his new novel, at the University of St. Andrews in Scotland. Now, I am going to get him on as soon as I can get the switchboard up. I had it up there just a second ago, and I'm sure you can hear me, Dr. Bradshaw. Unfortunately, we can't hear you at the moment. Just give me just a second or two, and let's hope we can get this thing up and going, at least enough to get you unmuted. Once we get you unmuted, we are pretty much good to go. The switchboard can mess up all it wants to. I think we are almost at that point, and again, let me apologize greatly for this to all those listening and to our guests tonight. Seems like we may be going a little bit of in and out as well. Almost there. Well, I've got half the switchboard at the phone number side there. Okay, let's see if we can get... Dr. Bradshaw, can you hear us? Or are you with us?
I'm with you, Jeremiah. I'm right here.
All right. That is wonderful. So hopefully everybody else can hear you as well. I apologize. Everything seemed to be running smooth there, and all of a sudden the switchboard and everything just kind of started going haywire. And, of course, that is technology today. So, let's get started with exactly how you got involved in demonology and researching it out, and how it kind of led to you writing this novel called Sinister Among Us.
Well, I can tell you exactly when it happened. It was 1961. That was only 16 years after the end of the Second World War. And I was a student at the University of St. Andrews in Scotland. And reputable scholars in Europe, especially theologians in England and Germany, were asking the question, how is it possible that man, in and of himself, could be so cruel and so horrible to commit the terrible atrocities of the Second World War, especially relating to the Jewish people? And so scholars began to say, is it possible that Satan, the devil, demons were involved in all of this? Well, no American even thought in these terms, and very few Europeans did, but some scholars, reputable scholars, did. I was at the university. I became interested in this, and I guess it's fair to say that I was one of the few people to approach the study of demonology from a scholarly point of view, and the only American to do this at that time. And as far as I know, I'm one of the only Americans to have approached the study of demonology from a scholarly point of view. I don't claim to be a practitioner. I don't claim to be an exorcist. I study demonology from a scholarly point of view, not from a religious point of view, not from some spiritualistic group, but simply trying to understand what demonology is all about, what is fact and what is fiction. And so that's how I got started with it.
Oh, wow. So now you haven't ever performed an exorcism or anything along those lines. Have you witnessed a number of them?
I have witnessed exorcisms, yes.
Wow, very interesting. And, I have to say, just so you know, it seems everybody can hear us fine. That is in our chat room, so it seems like everything may be up and running. My switchboard's still kind of a little goofy, but, hey, we're hearing you and they're hearing me, so that's all that matters right now. So we're doing good.
You might consider the subject that we're talking about this evening, that we're visiting about. You might think of the power of Satan and the devil and evil spirits, and maybe that has something to do with this foul-up tonight.
That's a good point, and it's funny that you kind of mentioned that, because we recently done a show called The Weird Roundtable where we talked about weird things, and sure enough, all night weird things were happening to the phone lines, people getting dropped off, and it was a wild night. And sometimes it seems like our shows kind of go along with the subject, but that is a great point. Now, I have to say, I got the opportunity to read the book Sinister Among Us, and I have to say I really enjoyed the book. It was, I think it was very well done in the way that you mixed fact with fiction. You had this whole storyline, but you had a lot of factual stuff in there, and I really thought you were entertained and informed at the same time. And I really enjoy books like that, and I would definitely compare it to something like a Dan Brown book, where it's a mix of that fact and fiction. And so you really go away, even though you read a fictional story, you still absorb some of that factual information was in that. Was it tough to write a book that mixed those two together?
Well, I'll tell you how this came about. I eat lunch every Wednesday with a group of men, and for several years they've said, you ought to write something for the layperson. And I said, well, it's not all that interesting. I've written scholarly papers and given scholarly speeches, but for the layperson, it's hard to be interesting enough. And I remember my dear grandmother, who loved me dearly and lived across the street, and I spent a lot of time with her. And when I got into this, I would give her things that I had written, and she would say, oh, this is so impressive. But somehow I just can't stay awake when I'm trying to read it. And so I wanted to make certain that if I spent the time to write something for the layperson, that they wouldn't go to sleep in the middle of reading it. So I decided to put it in the form of a novel, based on my professional experience through the years in not-for-profit institutions, working with boards of trustees as a college president, a chief financial officer, a development officer, the kinds of things that you run up against. And so although the book is fiction, I can tell you without question that the kinds of things that I speak about in that novel do actually happen. Those are events that do take place. And what I wanted to do was to write it in the form of a novel, so I thought people would remember the story. It's a good story. It's a mystery, and there's a bad guy in it, and there are different things that happen. But woven in and out of that story is a 101 course on demonology. And that was my main purpose in writing the novel, is having a 101 course on demonology written in a way that people would remember it and reference it.
Yeah, and you've done a very good job with it. I definitely have to say, like I said, I really felt, I did get a lot of the, like you said, that 101 basic learning of demonology. And, you talk about you drew a lot off of your own career experiences. So I guess, fair to say that the main character, Dr. Bradley Green, is more or less you portraying kind of your experiences through him, because I mean he was an interim college president, and through the story he was a fundraising specialist, financial specialist, things along those lines. So is that fair to say?
I would say that's fair. One of the interesting things you do when you write a novel is picking names of people, of the characters. How do you come up with the names of the various people? And through the years, especially in college, people called me Brad. Lots of people called me Brad, since my last name is Bradshaw. And my wife's maiden name is Green. So Dr. Bradley Green just seemed like a normal way to name this person. And yes, you're right. Probably many of the experiences that you'll find in this novel do relate to things that I have been involved in personally and professionally.
Mm-hmm. All right. And now that's kind of looking a little here through the chat room, make sure we had no questions coming through yet. And we're still having trouble with the switchboard, but no big deal there. Now, like I said, the book it's kind of a 101 course on demonology. Now, where would you start someone off if someone come up to you and said, I want to know about demonology. I know nothing about it, but it sounds like something that I'd be interested in, or like within the book where there was a concern that there was that Satan was involved in basically dictating the outcome and creating some of the chaos that was within Sinister Among Us. Where would you start somebody at?
Well, this probably sounds very self-serving, but I have to say that there is not, as far as I know, for the layperson, a book or an article written that introduces you to demonology. And I just have to say that this book tried to fill that vacuum. And I would say to people, this is a place to start. And I don't mean that in just trying to push my book, but I think without question, that's where you ought to start. I've had a number of people say, I just haven't been able to find anything like this. You can go to an encyclopedia and look under demonology. You can go to a reference book and look under Satan or the devil, something like that. But you'll get a rather superficial introduction to things.
Yeah, and you can definitely see that through the book. And I tell you one thing that I really enjoyed is, coming into it, knowing that the book, had that, it was kind of about demonology. From front to back, it wasn't all about Satan, devils, and demons. It was a good mixture in there, and you really had the reader, following the story a lot of the times. And then there was, like I say, here and there that demonology 101, and so it wasn't like I say, through the whole time, well, the devil was here, the devil was there, kind of stuff.
You are most kind, and I appreciate that. But the reviews that I've gotten have been good, and people say, it's a good story. Without the demonology, it's just a good story that keeps you going right along. I used the short chapter form as coming from the academic world. When I first wrote this, I had chapters 40 and 50 pages long, and I was soon told that this was not the way that I ought to be, but instead that it was something that I should look at. So I introduced the short chapter form, and there are chapters, many 2 and 3 pages long, one only, as I remember, 1 paragraph long, so you get reading it. And the idea was that, if you're in an airport or on an airplane or late at night and you see a chapter 40 or 50 pages long, you're not going to start it, but if it's only 2 or 3 pages, you'll keep reading. And so it's a good story besides the demonology part of it.
It is, and it involves, like we said, a lot of mystery, and definitely a lot of thinking, kind of who is it, kind of thinking about it. And yeah, I love the short chapters. You know, I think a lot of people read chapter to chapter, and a lot of, you know I'm bad to look ahead to see, how long the next chapter is. And if it's, like you say, 50 pages long, well, I'm not about to start it anytime soon, most likely. And there was a couple of chapters in there that you said they were only like a paragraph or a half a page long. So you almost found yourself almost kind of zipping right through it. And it was great. You really felt like you was, just flying right through the book.
I tried to end each chapter in a way that that led you to wanting to read the next chapter. I guess I remembered as a kid growing up and going to the movies on Saturday and having a serial, some kind of a serial cowboy picture usually, and it'd go for 15 weeks, and it'd be just a short thing, and each week it would end, and it would make you want to come back the next week. So I ended each chapter in a way that that I hoped would draw the reader into the next chapter.
Yeah, very, very much. All right, well, let's kind of get into the book itself. And like I said, I definitely don't want to give away any of the main points of the book or the ending or anything like that, because I really want to encourage our listeners out there that if they're really interested in demonology or just want to a good story that you want to sit down and I'll tell you right now you'll enjoy it and to kind of keep you on your toes. Really encourage our listeners to go out and pick this book up. Again, it's called Sinister Among Us by Dr. William B. Bradshaw. You can find it on Amazon. A lot of Christian stores carry this book as well, so you can find it in a lot of places.
It's my understanding
now,
Jeremiah, it's my understanding that you can also get it through major bookstores like Barnes & Noble, places like that. But Amazon.com is a very popular place. You're certainly right about that.
Right, and as well, you also have a website for it, SinisterAmongUs.com, correct?
Yes. And the website tells you where you can get it, but it also has questions and answers about demonology and what others have said about the book. So SinisterAmongUs.com, go to that for the website and to pick up some additional information.
All right. Well, let's kind of get into the main storyline, exactly what the story's about. Like we mentioned earlier, the main character, Dr. Bradley Green. He's a retired financial specialist, kind of what they refer to as a turnaround financial specialist. Was that the right term?
Yes. The story in a nutshell. I placed it on a fictitious campus in southern Indiana. It involves a small private Christian college which has had a great past but is having a lot of problems now. Those problems have manifested themselves by financial difficulties, and so they bring in Bradley Green, who has been a financial turnaround specialist for small colleges. He comes in, straightens the colleges out, and then he goes on to the next one. He's retired, but they end up bringing him to the campus. And he gets involved, and soon he's plagued with all kinds of peculiar situations that are unlike what he has faced on other campuses. And he's rather bewildered about what is happening, and so he goes to a childhood friend, a specialist in demonology, and visits with him, and then his friend gets him up with a Catholic priest, and it goes on through, he's trying to figure out, is it possible that demons are involved here and Satan is at the head of all this trouble, or is it just sinful things that are happening? And so that's the basis of the story.
And now, so like I say, he goes to this, Cypress College, and he finds it to be a little bit more than what he's dealt with in the past. What is it, like I say, without giving a whole lot that you don't want to give away the book, what is it that makes this different than what he has dealt with before?
Well, he soon begins to see a preponderance of evil things at this one institution. There are things that he has seen at other institutions, but not all of the bad things at a single institution. He definitely sees that money is missing. He sees that a trust fund has been invaded. He finds special favors on campus to some students. He finds a prostitution ring on the campus. He finds faculty selling drugs and selling sex, faculty trading grades for sex. He finds all kinds of things going on, and he's just never seen a preponderance of all of these types of things happening. And on top of that, remembering this is a Christian college, and that's not where you would expect these types of things to happen. So he is really sees that it goes beyond the financial difficulties. And the other thing that happens whenever he begins to chart a course of action, everybody seems to know about it before he does it, and it's interrupted. And he's a man who plays his cards very close to his vest and doesn't tell other people what he's up to, and yet they seem to know. And he just begins to wonder, how can all of this possibly be?
Mm-hmm. And yeah, he is definitely portrayed as someone. He goes in and he's there to get the job done. Like you say, he plays his cards close to his vest. He really, and he does things his way, but with good reason. He's a tough guy, really, in a way, in the way that he goes in to straighten these things up.
Yeah, the book. Hopefully, I am an ordained minister, and hopefully it also put forth the value of being your own person, of standing up for what you believe is right, even though you may be in the minority, and even though you may have to take some hard knocks doing it. When you believe in your very being that something is right and this is the way it ought to be, you stick with your guns and take the flak. And it talks about that quality of leadership. And I know I had one father say to me, I'm going to have my 14-year-old son read this because I think it's important for him to understand that leaders are not always popular, but they've got to do what they know is right anyway. And so there's that side of the book as well as just demonology.
Yeah, and like I said, you're right. This book does have quite a few little messages throughout it. Now, I really want. There was one particular part in the book, kind of getting into more of the demonology side of it here, that I really found interesting, and it was when Bradley Green goes to meet his friend Will and Father Bronson, and they're kind of giving him the rundown of Demonology 101, and they get talking about the difference between the New and the Old Testament, and exactly how demons and evil spirits was treated with both. And I just found it very interesting, the difference of the two. And can you kind of give us a summary of what exactly this conversation was about?
Yes. The interesting thing is that I firmly believe that scholarship says this, and I think most Old Testament scholars will say this, that demonology does not exist in the Old Testament. And now we need to define some terms. What do we mean by demonology? The study of demons, the existence of demons. A demon is an evil spirit which is working independently of God's control. And I would say that in the Old Testament, and again I say it's not only, I'm not the only one saying this, this would be, I think, what most reputable Old Testament scholars would say, that demons, independent evil spirits, independent of God's control, do not exist in the Old Testament. Well, immediately people say, well, what about Satan? Satan in the book of Job, he was an evil spirit, and he certainly existed separate from God's control, and that's not so at all. If you go back and read the original Hebrew of the book of Job, first of all, Satan is not a proper name, but it's a title. It is the Satan. And in Hebrew, that means the adversary. And furthermore, in the book of Job, the Satan, the adversary, is in the court of God. He is an angel. He is part of working with the other angels in the court of God, and his job was really like the modern-day prosecuting attorney. His job was to find evil on earth and to prosecute it. Now, what really happened in the book of Job, this prosecuting attorney got overzealous with what he was doing, and he went overboard with trying to find evil, and if he couldn't find it, he just tried to produce it. And, once in a while we have a modern-day prosecuting attorney who steps over the lines and does things like that. So in the Old Testament, Satan is not an individual being. It is the Satan. Through the years, as the translations were changed from Hebrew into Greek, into Latin, into English, and as the idea of demonology began to develop in the minds of people, the Satan became a proper name, Satan. So in the Old Testament, you have the Satan in the court of God, and in the New Testament, you have Satan. It's not a question of is he in the court of God. He definitely is not. He is in opposition to God. And so you have that difference from the Old and the New Testament. And you'll find several stories in the Old Testament that some of us 21st century people think refer to Satan, but if you really read back into the original language and understand the original history of things, Satan, demons, evil spirits, independent of God, just don't exist in the Old Testament.
No, I found that just very interesting. Now, William, it looks like we may have a caller on the line, so let's see if we can get to that, and hope our switcher's working. Caller 406, what's your name and where you from?
Okay, me, you mean? This is Fletcher
yes.
here. How you doing?
Hey, Paul, how are you?
I'm doing great. I have got a kind of a twofold question here for your guest. What is the difference between demon oppression and demon possession? And if you are not living in God's will, can you be demon possessed?
Would you clarify give me those two questions again, please?
Okay, what's the difference between demon possession and demon oppression? And if you're not, even if you are a believer, can you be either oppressed by demons or even possessed by demons?
All right, clear. First of all, demon possession is the idea that a demon takes control of you and you have no choice as to what you're doing. The language used in demon possession is military terms, and it speaks of confinement, control, that you're seized by violence, you are tied up, you are bound up, you are put in prison. I remember as a clergyman when I was an active pastor that I used to visit people in the prisons, and what a terrible feeling it was to go into these ultra secure prisons, and you would go through a series of rooms that were simply bars. They would open a door and you go from one and put it down and go to the next, and you felt just completely controlled and you lost all of your freedom. This is the sense that you have with possession, that you lose all of your freedom, that you're bound up, you're tied up, and there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. You can grab hold of the bars, you can shake them, you can rattle them, but you can't undo them. And this is the idea that you are demon possessed. Now, if you are oppressed by a demon, it means that a demon is creating difficult problems for you and causing you to have some oppression, but not actually controlling you. It's more as though the secondary effects of demon possession on another person is now affecting you. Your second question, can a believer be possessed? Now, you've asked a very, very significant and important question, and although I don't address it in this way in the book, it is certainly addressed in the book, because what usually happens is when people think of someone who is demon-possessed, we say, oh, that's a bad person. That's, we just think right off the bat he's sinful, he's bad, he deserves to be this way, or else Satan wouldn't be there. Not so. As a student of demonology, it is my belief that Satan targets the talented, good, and very fine people, because if he can disrupt them, he has created a lot of havoc in what's going on in God's universe. For example, if Satan will tend to possess two kinds of people. Satan will possess and interfere with the person who is destined to be great. And that's why so many children are demon-possessed. Satan realizes that here's someone who's going to be a great artist, a great school teacher, a great lawyer, a great business person, a great salesperson, a great doctor, or a great minister, a priest, what have you. And if Satan can stop that person ahead of time, then he has created some havoc for God's universe. The other type of person that Satan will possess and take control of is the person who has become very famous. And, sometimes we see people in responsible positions that do such awful things and sometimes such dumb things, and one just has to believe that, hey, he's smarter than that, and there has to be a satanic influence to cause that person to go astray. So can a believer be possessed or oppressed? Absolutely, because those are the people that God is that Satan is really going to attack and hopefully disrupt God's kingdom. And if a pious, fine person goes astray, then people say, well, why would a servant of God, why would such a good person go astray? And so Satan's really done his thing when he goes after somebody who is very much a believer in the camp of his religious faith. Does that answer your question?
Well, yes, and I have another one for you just real quickly, and this will be the last one.
Well, you gave me two good ones to start out with. Let's have this one.
Okay, not a problem. Back in my past, when I fell away from the Lord, before I, got back with Him and tried to live my life, I was attacked one night when I fell away by what I would call demons. And they threatened to tear me apart and do all this stuff, but yet they couldn't touch me. It's like I had a, to use an expression, like a spiritual force field or whatever, protecting me from that. But I believe God used that as a particular instrument to force me into kind of looking on my life and seeing where I was at the time and getting me back to doing the right thing. And do you believe that God will allow us to go through stuff in order for us to come back to Him and do so even more stronger than what we did before?
I'm a firm believer that God gives us free will. If you go to the very first book in the Bible, the book of Genesis, and the story of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, again, many people picture the snake as being a demon or Satan, and this, again, it has just is distorting the original meaning of the story. The story, it seems to me, addresses your question. here you have Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, and God says to Adam and Eve, you're free to eat of any fruit of any tree out here except this one, leave it alone. And so he disappears. And so after he goes, then Adam and Eve talk, and Eve says, oh, Adam, it's okay to eat of it. And Adam says, oh, no, I can't do that. And she says, yeah, go on and do that. And so they talk about it, and Adam goes on and eats of the tree. And so God shows up, and God says, Adam, what have you done? And he said, oh, it's not my fault, God, not my fault. It's Eve. She talked me into it. You blame her, not me. And Eve says, oh, God, it's not my fault. It's that snake down there. And the snake is not thought of as Satan or an evil spirit. The snake at that time of the human existence was just thought as one of the worst slimy, slick creatures that you could have sliding through the grass. And so the writer simply uses this as a symbol of evil and bad. And so Eve says, it's the snake's fault. But what does God do? God says, hey, Adam, Eve, snake, you're all guilty, and I'm going to hold you all responsible for what you do. And so what I'm saying is God holds all of us responsible for what we do, and it's not, we can't blame someone else for what we're doing. So God gives us the free will to either abide by him or go astray. And if we go astray, then we face the consequences. And so I think many times that God, that we as people go astray, but we have that free will and God allows that. But also something happens with some people, and evidently this is what happened with you. There is something that causes you to make the decision to come back, and God's arms are wide open and says, come on, I want you back. And so you have the ability to decide, I'm going to alienate myself from God, or I'm going to be in his arms, and God gives us that decision, and he allows us to do whatever. Does that answer your question?
That answers my question, and thank you so very much. And Jeremiah, thank you.
Well, thank you for calling in. I appreciate your questions.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Paul.
Okay, bye.
He asked good questions, Jeremiah.
Yeah, very good questions there. And let me just say, give Paul a little bit of a plug there, because he also has a show here on Blog Talk called Truth Files with Slick Rick. So those listening, if you get a chance, check them out, because it is a good show. And yeah, those were wonderful questions, and definitely some of exactly what was talked about in the book there, and the story about the serpent. Was I was raised Christian myself, and it was always taught it was Satan in the Garden of Eden. But here we're talking about it was more of that, like you said, it was a seen as just a slimy creature, not really associated with the devil itself.
Well, there are so many evil spirits. There were evil spirits, but they were more thought of as not independent of God, but they were shadowy evil spirits. They lived in various desolate places in the wilderness and in the desert, and they supposedly existed along trails, and what it really amounted to was that people associated evil animals or places where you tend to get hurt or where you might be robbed. They associated that with some type of an evil spirit, but this was all under God's control in the Old Testament. Another interesting term that we so frequently hear referred to as Satan is the term Lucifer. Well, Lucifer is a Hebrew word that actually means the bringer of light or the shining one. And in ancient times, it was used to refer to kings or popular leaders, morning stars, and sometimes even to the planet Venus. And sometime, we don't know exactly when, but around 250 A.D., some early Christians, dealing with some prophecy that spoke of the downfall of popular leaders, erroneously interpreted Lucifer to mean Satan. This just wasn't the case at all, but many of us, because of later thought and the writings of some early Christians, not biblical writings, but writings of early Christians, 250 years after the time of Christ, many people have come to believe that Lucifer is in the Bible and refers to Satan. Not at all, just not there.
Oh, wow, very interesting. Well, we have another caller here, and let's get them on the line.
Good.
Let's see if come on, switchboard. And, well, let's see. It's not showing it. Toppy, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, so I believe you are unmuted then. It's not showing it that way, but I'm going to trust that it is.
Man, my switchboard was doing the same thing this week. Jeremiah,
there we go. We're good.
It's me. This is Toppy, and I will always tell you that it's me when I call your show. Because I caught that on the archive that you thought it was me, somebody else called. And nothing annoys me more than somebody who calls and won't tell me who they are, and they think I should recognize their voice. And I guess if I don't, that means I'm not their friend or something. I don't know. But
well, I apologize for that.
That's not a problem. Hey, all press is good. I do have and by the way, good evening, gentlemen, and Dr. Bradshaw. I'd like to just give you a thumbnail sketch of a personal experience that happened to me, and I'd love to get your take on this. I firmly believe that I was attacked by demons. In fact, I believe I've been attacked by demons maybe 2 or 3 times, and I'll never forget this particular time. It was July the 5th, 1989, and early morning. I had been before this happened to me, I had been teaching a Sunday school class on the occult and on cults, and it seems like it seems to me that maybe I was stepping on some toes out there in a spiritual sense, because first of all, and this happened early in the morning, I had a dream, and somehow the dream was interrupted by, I felt like the sensation that I had been jabbed in the side by a pole or a rod or something like that. I mean, just right into my ribs. And that jolted me right up out of bed. And at the time, I was wearing 2 wristwatches. And one of them had my time, and another had the time of some friends of mine who were on a mission trip. So when I looked at my watch, it was working, but the mission trip watch was dead, just absolutely dead. And I noticed that even though I had air conditioning and a ceiling fan, the air was just very, very thick. And so I just started praying for protection. And it took me a while, but I finally got back to sleep. And the next thing you know, I have another dream. And in the dream, I'm just walking along with my mother, and all of a sudden she just gives me these weird eyes that just strange eyes, and I suddenly realized this dream is going in a very bad direction, and this is not my mother. And I just started casting out this demon in the name of Jesus, and I just brought myself out of it. Anyway, these kind of things were happening. It seems like from 1 o'clock in the morning until way late. It must have been, and finally the last thing that happened, this is the last thing that I remember, and it was about 6 o'clock in the morning. I was laying there in bed. It seemed like I finally was getting some rest, and I felt these hands massaging my back, and I was thinking, wait, maybe my girlfriend has let herself into my apartment. Maybe she's surprising me. And then I realized, wait a minute, she doesn't have the keys to my apartment. And, of course, I'd been reading about the incubus and the succubus, and I just jumped up immediately. and started trying to cast that one out. It was just, and that morning, my body was just riddled and sore. It had been a long, long night, and so it seems to me that, I don't know, maybe because I was teaching what I was teaching or because I'd gotten too close to what I was teaching, I don't know what it was, but I sure would like to get your take on that.
Well, one of the problems we have with the study of demons is the problem we have with the study of good or evil spirits. We cannot feel them, we cannot taste them, we cannot talk with them, we can't communicate with either good or evil spirits with our natural human senses. And so when you get right down to it, and some people don't like to hear me say this, but you can't really prove the existence of either good or evil spirits. I can't prove that God exists. I can't prove that Satan exists. But why do we think that God or Satan exists? Sometimes there are such wonderful, beautiful, marvelous things that happen in life that we just know those are beyond man's capability of performing or causing to happen. And so we assume there is this good spirit we call God. We identify spirits not because we can feel them or touch them or hear them, but by the impact of their actions on human existence. And sometimes we see such marvelous things happen, we say, hey, they're good spirits. Likewise, we see such atrocious things, sometimes just so terrible or just so dumb and stupid that we know there has to be something beyond man's control mixed up in all of this. And so what you're talking about are things that are going to depend a lot upon what you have experienced and what you believe. From what you tell me, I'm going to assume that you're right, that Satan, the king of the evil spirits, didn't like what you were doing. And as a scholar of demonology, I would say that the number of demons compared to the number of angels is minuscule. There are very few demons compared to the number of angels. And therefore, Satan can't afford to have his demons always possessing people. Sometimes he can't afford to have a demon living in one person all the time, but he's just got to have them flit from person to person to person. And so when someone is getting pretty close to him and making him feel uncomfortable, he sends one of his demons to do a job on him, and that may well be what happened with you.
Well, I got to tell you, for nights, I don't know how long, it must have taken me about a month or 2 months before I could feel secure at all about where I was, about going to sleep even. But advice that I was given was to read from the Bible the part where Jesus was on the cross, because I was told that's the ultimate defeat of Satan. I not only would read that at night before I went to bed, I had Bible on tape. I would leave that on before I could even go to sleep. And I tell you, it was very unpleasant. And it was just the most frightening thing that's happened. I've had this happen a couple of times afterwards. It wasn't as bad as that one night. That night seemed to take forever. But that was the most frightening and terrifying thing I've ever had happen in my life.
Jeremiah, we haven't talked yet about exorcism, the process of casting out demons, and maybe we'll have a chance to do that later, and it's a complex subject, and I don't mean to start it now, but we know that with exorcism, one of the things that demons cannot withstand is the presence of God, is the Word of God, and demons will fight hard to keep the Word of God away from them. And so I'm thinking that your caller did the right thing in going to Scripture and into New Testament, because this is something that we do a lot with exorcisms. But thank you very much for your questions, your comment, your experiences. They've been
well, thank you.
All right, thanks, Toppy, for sharing.
Thanks a lot, Jeremiah. Have a great night.
Right.
I'll be in the chat room, and I'll be definitely checking out the archive. This is going to be a good one.
All right, thanks, Toppy.
Tell me, Jeremiah, how long is a program kept in your archives? If one of our listeners wanted to come back and listen to this, re-listen to it, or they want to tell a friend, hey, you should have heard this. How long does it stay on the archives, and how does someone check into it?
It will stay until I delete it out. To be honest, you can actually, our show, you can go listen to, I took our first show out, but you can still even go listen to our second show, which was April of last year. So all shows can still be listened to, and after the show, I will send you the direct link to the archive. So if you want to send it out to anybody you know, and we have it posted on our website and here on Blog Talk as well.
All right. All right.
So we'll definitely do that. Well, I tell you what, we are just a couple minutes from about halfway through the show, and I think this is a good point for us to maybe take about a 5-minute break. And when we come back, I want to get a little bit into, we talked about the Old Testament and kind of how, about demons and evil spirits, and get a little more into the New Testament side of it, and definitely, like we were saying, into, how an exorcism is, how it takes place, how to prepare, who does this, exactly all that kind of stuff, because it's outlined in the book as well, and I really want to get into that too.
All right.
So sound good to you?
Sounds good to me.
All right, well, just hang with us. Don't go anywhere. And just by chance, since we are having a few issues here and there, if you do happen to lose connection, just call right back in, and we'll see you pop back up, okay?
All right. Good.
All right. All right, like I said, everyone, we're going to take about a 5-minute break here, and when we return, we're going to get into more about demonology and talk about Dr. Bradshaw's book, Sinister Among Us. Like I said, I really recommend that you check this book out. It is a great read. It's a mix of fact and fiction. You can definitely learn some from it. So hang tight with us, and we will return in about 5 minutes or so and continue our talk with Dr. William Bradshaw. All right, I want to welcome everyone back to the show. Seemed like my little bit of audio there was kind of messing up, so we just kind of cut a little short. But you are listening to Shadows in the Dark right here on Blog Talk Radio, and tonight we are talking with Dr. William Bradshaw, author of Sinister Among Us, and we were discussing demonology and some of what he has written in his book. And William, you still with us?
Yes, I am. I'm right here.
All right, wonderful. Now, before we get into a couple of topics that, wanted to touch on in this last hour of the show, there was a question from Toppy through the chat room before he called in, and it was, excuse me, it was kind of asking on, do you have maybe a theory or a thought of where Satan resides on Earth today?
I think that Satan is a spirit and therefore does not reside on earth. He is a spirit, and he resides in the spirit world and not as a being on earth. We feel the result of his power, the result of his influence among people on earth, and also there is the belief that Satan has the power to influence some natural disasters, that he can interrupt the normal flow of the natural process, but he does not reside on earth, but we feel the existence of his power through the lives or the things that happen to us as we live here on earth.
Okay. All right, well, let's kind of, like I said, wanted to get into the New Testament side of demons and evil spirits, and, it is definitely obvious that it really acknowledges their existence. I mean, with just Christ's ministry, he went around casting out evil spirits out of many people, and you definitely seen what some of the causes were of being possessed. I mean, illness, deformities, pretty good list. So if we can really kind of get into that a little bit.
Yes, what you have, first of all, I want to clarify a little bit of terminology. In the New Testament, you have Satan and the devil referred to. Actually, Satan is the Hebrew form of the word. The devil is the Greek form of the word, and originally the scriptures, the Old Testament was written in Hebrew and then translated into Greek, and then the New Testament was written in Greek and translated into Latin and into English. And so those terms have come about, and sometimes we see Satan, sometimes we see the devil. They are synonymous. Both of them mean the same thing. The Satan or the devil is the head evil spirit in charge of the army of other evil spirits, which are called demons. And so I just wanted to clarify that. In the New Testament, we have both Satan and the devil used. Now, going on to the very first story in the New Testament, after Jesus is baptized, what happens to him? He is led into the wilderness to be tempted by Satan. And this is not Satan's idea. This idea does not come from Jesus, but it's God's idea. And God leads Jesus into the wilderness to be tempted by Satan. And this I take as the first act after he's baptized, and it is a foreshadowing of the rest of the ministry of Jesus. In other words, God has set Jesus aside for the purpose of doing battle with Satan. And that is the situation we have throughout the New Testament. And I don't know of any way that you can understand the New Testament if you fail to realize that in between the Old and the New Testament, and when the New Testament opens, people don't realize that the belief among the early Christians and among the Hebrew people was that God had lost control of things, that things had gone very much astray, and that the scales were in a tedious situation. Were they going to lean toward God, or were they going to lean toward Satan? And it is at this time that God decides to bring Jesus in to the picture, and Jesus begins to take over this battle that is with Satan, the head of the evil spirits. And we see this battle going on again and again. You mentioned illness. Usually, illness and demon possession are two separate things. You will see in the New Testament somebody is ill. Satan can cause illness, but usually in the New Testament, illness is not caused by Satan, though there are some exceptions to that. You mentioned demon possession. Yes, this was a common thing, but more than demon possession, where possession means that God is really taken hold and lives in a person, dictates everything a person does. Also, in the Old Testament, in the New Testament, we see Satan influencing people. We see that Satan causes Judas to betray Jesus at the end. We see Satan influencing people in different ways. And so in the New Testament, Satan is for real. He is in charge of his kingdom of demons, and they are out to destroy the kingdom of God.
Mm-hmm. And you're kind of talking about, and it was definitely something that was brought up in the book, was, how maybe one person could be possessed, but it would create a domino effect and influence others, and this seemed to be something that was going on.
Absolutely. This is Satan going after somebody who was important, had some influence, and if he can bring that person down, it has the domino effect of causing other people to suffer and create hardship in the kingdom of God.
Mm-hmm. And let me say to our listeners out there, if anyone wishes to call in and ask Dr. Bradshaw a question or just make a comment or share an experience, that number is 718-508-9887, or you can join us in the chat room, send questions through there. We will. I monitor the chat room, and we will definitely see it and get it in. Now, you definitely brought up the exorcism there earlier when we had Poppy call in, and how you wanted to get into that. And it definitely in the book Sinister Among Us, it definitely goes through how to kind of prepare for this, and it didn't really seem like a very simple thing. That there was a lot to it. That you just couldn't go in and read a couple of verses and you were done.
Well, some of my more conservative religious friends, I grew up in the Ozarks of southwestern Missouri, certainly down in the Bible Belt, and some of my friends in that part of the country might disagree with some of the things I'm going to say now, but demon exorcism, the casting out of demons, is not something that usually happens just at the end of a service when they have an altar call and ask people to come down and the minister lays hands on the person and says something and the demon is cast out. That can happen and does happen, but that's not the norm and that's not the way that it usually does happen. And I think that They, that is the clergymen who claim to do this all the time, and the people who are receiving this kind of a treatment don't really understand the perplexities and the seriousness of demon possession and exorcism. Now, there can be those short, quick exorcisms, but usually what happens is an exorcism is a process that takes 5, 6, 7 days. And there will be a team of people working together. You will have, first of all, you will have the head exorcist. And the head exorcist will be the one who is in charge of getting his team together. And usually the head exorcist will also have a second exorcist helping with the exorcism. And the second exorcist will have a little different approach to things, realizing that some people respond one way to an approach and other people like another approach. And so the head exorcist usually will have a second exorcist who approaches things just a little differently. Then one of the things we always worry about with an exorcism is the safety of the person who is being treated. This is especially a problem with young people, but with all people. And so we need to have on the team, if not there all the time during the exorcism, readily available, quickly on call, is a medical doctor. Also, we need a counselor, either a psychologist or a psychiatrist. Again, it is most helpful if that person is able to be present during the full time, but certainly very readily available. Then one of the most important persons is the priest. You have to have a minister or a priest present because the exorcism must be spiritually based in order to really do its job. And so the head exorcist, many times it will maybe take him a couple of months to be able to decide the mix of the team, the expertise that the exorcist needs on his team, and to recruit the people who are willing to spend this much time. And usually what will happen is that the exorcism the team will work during the daytime and will be trying different things to cast out the demon, and then at night the team members will meet and decide what they do tomorrow. So you have to have some caregivers to take care of that person from whom the demon is being exorcised. You've got to be sure that they're fed, that they're safe all the time, that they're bathed and clothed and things like that. So you have a team of several people who are hard at work over a period of time to perform this exorcism. So it's a complicated process and not something that just happens very quickly.
Right. Let me let's kind of stop right there because we have another caller on the line here.
All right.
And caller from 803, you're on Shadows in the Dark with Dr. William Bradshaw. What's your name and where you're from?
Hi, I'm Bambi from South Carolina.
Hello, Bambi.
Hi. I wanted to ask Mr. Bradshaw about this thing that I saw when I was 4, and it came in my bedroom, and you and I have talked about it before. And it had the torso of a man. It had very black skin that looked like it was charred. It also kind of looked like a beaded lizard, and the face had this long, like, canine or lizard-type snout, and it just grinned at me, and it scared me so badly, and I thought it was a demon. It didn't say anything to me, but it tried to intimidate me, is what it felt like. And I wanted to ask Mr. Bradshaw if that is unusual for a demon to show itself to a child, and why it would do that. How unusual is it for people to actually see a demon instead of experiencing it in other ways?
It would be very unusual for someone to see a demon. A demon is a spirit, and we just can't see spirits. We can't see God, we can't see angels, we can't see Satan, we can't see demons. However, a spirit is able to take a form of some other creature that is existing. So if you actually saw this, and this creature, whatever it was real in your bedroom or wherever it was at this age of 4, it is entirely possible that it was a demon using some other form of existence in order to appear to you. But you did not actually see the demon.
And do you have an idea why the demon would do that to me? It was trying to intimidate me, and it scared me so badly that I wasn't even able to talk about it until I was 18. I've never researched demonology because I was so frightened by that experience.
Well, let me tell you that we haven't even talked about this, Jeremiah, and maybe we need to here in a few minutes. How do we tell if someone is demon-possessed? How do we tell if really it is a demon at work, or if someone is just plain very mean and nasty and sinful, as we all can be? How do we tell the existence? But I can tell you that statistics will show that more women are possessed than men. And people immediately say, well, what does this mean? Does this mean women are of the weaker sex? And I say, no, this doesn't necessarily mean that at all. If you remember earlier in the show, I said that Satan wants to stop influential people who are going to be effective before they ever get started. And this may be an indication, since there are more women affected by Satan than men, that Satan realizes how important women are and what valuable leadership qualities they can have, and this may be a reason that women have had trouble in the business world and in the political world, and always men are being compared salaries and advancement and positions. It may well be that Satan has been able to keep women from rising to where they ought to be and the capability they have, because he realizes how how very strong they could be in leadership positions. It may well be that Satan did this. It scared you so bad you wouldn't even talk about it. If you were 4 years old, you didn't talk about it till 18 years, until you were 18 years old. That's 14 years that Satan shut you up and put you so you couldn't talk about this. It may be that he saw that you were a very special person with great qualities, with great potential, and he just wanted to knock you out of the ballpark before you ever had a chance. How does that sound to you?
That is a fascinating perspective, the whole thing of what you said about me personally and about all women being maybe Satan is trying to keep them down. That's fascinating.
Well, I have found that many people who have been affected by demon possession or have had attacks on their activity, on themselves by evil spirits, that it has a devastating effect on them. It destroys self-confidence. It makes them feel that they're unworthy. And I'm not suggesting this of you, but many times...
That's exactly what happened. I thought that I was a bad girl. I thought that's why that thing came to me, because I was a bad girl. And I thought for years that I was a bad girl. And it was trying to tell me that it, like, owned me. It was trying to say that to me. And I thought, well, and I always felt uncomfortable in church because I was like, I'm a bad girl. The devil likes me.
The devil just wanted to make you feel that way so you would not develop into the kind of person that you had the potential to. I don't know how old you are now, and I'm not asking you to reveal that on the program, but I am saying that regardless of how old you are, you're never too old to begin to develop that potential that was interrupted at one time.
Well, thank you.
So
thank you, Jeremiah.
Just
Thank you.
realize what you are capable of doing, and forget this bad girl business, and be the person God means you to be.
Thank you. That's very nice, and that is very comforting. The most comforting advice I've had on the situation since I finally started asking people about it. Thank you very much.
Good.
Thank you, Bambi.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right. Yeah, that was very interesting, and I never really thought of it that way myself. I have to definitely say so. Now, kind of getting back into talking about the exorcisms themselves, and like I say, definitely want to get into how to identify that someone is possessed. Now once the team is together and they go through, how is it that they go through performing the exorcism, and is it different for different cases? I mean, is there, there's not one way to go about it, is there?
No, there isn't just one way, and it's going to depend upon how old the person is, what is the background of the person is, what their experiences are, and the condition that the person is in. Usually, this is what happens. Usually, a person is having all kinds of problems. And if it's a young person, the parents will say, this is just a problem child, and he or she will grow out of it. And they don't grow out of it, so they take them to a child psychologist, and that doesn't work. And so in serious cases, they take them to a child psychiatrist, and this doesn't help, and the child goes from counselor to psychiatrist and gets worse and worse and becomes a real problem child. Or the adult has the same thing. They're having problems. They're not getting along, and life is falling apart, and they go to a counselor, and that doesn't work, and they go to another counselor. And what always happens with these people is, because for the most part, the medical world is not trained to identify the existence of demons, and they look for other causes and other cures, and so you go to a counselor and you don't get help, and you go to another one, and you end up just having a very unhappy life. And so depending upon where in this chain of events the exorcism comes in will depend upon how you approach this exorcism. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It definitely does.
Now,
And now, yeah, go ahead.
One of the things we were constantly dealing with, and back to my book, Sinister Among Us, Bradley Green in this book is constantly trying to figure out, is Satan involved in this thing, or is it just people being really very, very human and very bad, awful people?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's always a problem. How do we know, is a person actually demon-possessed, or are they just really being far, far human and so nasty and so awful? And so there are certain characteristics, there are certain signs of demon possession. Now, this doesn't mean that every person who has one or more of these signs is demon-possessed or one of these symptoms, but it does mean that if you have one or more of these symptoms, it may be well worth looking at the possibility of demon possession. Now, these are some of the symptoms, and some of them are going to sound kind of weird, but I can tell you without question, I have observed these characteristics to be real, and they do exist, and people have these types of symptoms. One that is very common is that a person who is demon-possessed will have a slightly strange-looking face. The skin will be stretched tight over their face, and they will have few wrinkles in their face. This is especially so when the demon is exercising, is causing them to do something that is bad or awful. And it may be that somebody you see with a few wrinkles on their face has been to a plastic surgeon and had a facelift job, or it may be that it's just a natural thing, or it may be that they're demon-possessed. The person who's demon-possessed will frequently speak with a very rapid-fire, machine gun-like delivery, using unrecognizable words. In the religious world, you will hear of people speaking in tongues, and certainly I have at many evangelical services witnessed the speaking in tongues, using language and saying things that other people don't understand. And many times the person who will have this rapid-fire, machine gun-like delivery using unrecognizable words typical of speaking in tongues, it's a symptom of demon possession. Another one is that they will use exaggerated hand gestures, just moving their hands and arms all the time when they have no emotion going with it. It's very common for a person speaking when they're emphasizing a particular point to use their arms, to jab their fist in the air and what have you, but this unaccompanied by any apparent emotion, just their arms moving all the time. They will exhibit unusual, way unusual strength for what you would think of their physical stature. They will they will have terrifying dreams. And this is very interesting, and I have witnessed this. I have personally witnessed this. They will be able to speak 1 to 3 foreign languages that they've never studied. Just the ability to speak a foreign language. And another matter that I was involved in, and I won't go into this, and I won't say how I was involved in it, but there is this ability to foretell future events. And I say I won't go into it. I spoke with a person before it happened that told exactly what was going to happen to Robert Kennedy when he was assassinated in California, and the exact location and the way it happened. I spoke with a person, and as did other authorities, but this was real, and it was concluded this person was demon-possessed. The person will have severe depression and onslaughts of migraine headaches. Now, this doesn't mean everybody who's depressed and everybody who has a migraine headache is demon-possessed, but this is one of the symptoms. And if there have several of these symptoms, one wants to pay attention to them. Another one is that they will be just very vivacious, very nice, very pleasant, and all at once become the most vile person, disgusting person, attacking you verbally. These are some of the symptoms, and one other one is that they exhibit the typical symptoms of schizophrenia. Those are some of the symptoms that you have. And so what happens is these are symptoms that many times are attributed to mental disorders, to medical diseases, and you go to a counselor, to a psychiatrist, and they treat you for these. They give you drugs for them. They give you counseling, and it doesn't do any good. And so finally, when someone does recognize what's going on here, when someone does finally recognize that this person is demon-possessed, then they get to someone who is a qualified exorcist and is able to cast the demon out. Now, my problem with some of these evangelistic services where the minister claims to cast the demon out, this is a very serious problem, and the person who is being exorcised and the person or team performing the exorcism is in great danger. And so you don't approach exorcisms unless you understand the history of the person, their mental attitude, and protect their physical, spiritual, and mental health as you're going through this. So exorcism is a very serious business that takes a team of specialists to perform it.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, you're right. I mean, we've seen many of the, on television, you walk up and the minister, preacher, or whatever the case may be, lays his hands on them, and boom, it's all done. So this is a very dangerous thing to really do.
I'm not saying that there aren't the quick fix exorcisms, but they are, in my opinion, few and far between.
Right. Okay. We have a few questions from the chat room here that I jotted down, and the first one comes from Welcome Spirits, and they're asking. She's asking, what is your kind of the take on Wiccans, being that they don't really believe in Satan, but they do believe in evil spirits. Does this play any kind of role within demonology?
I think there are a lot of people who refer to demons. We'll hear people say, "Oh, I've got to get rid of the demons in my life." I think a lot of people use the word demons to refer generically to general evil, and they speak of angels and demons, though they don't really believe in their existence. They use them in a way of referring verbally to the tug of good and evil that exists in human existence on every level. And I think that usually a person has to believe in the existence of the evil kingdom, Satan and the army of demons that goes along with Satan. And that would be what I would describe as the true study of demonology.
Okay. This one comes from Kathy as well in the chat room, and she's asking, do you think a person can be overanalyzed to the point of allowing bad to come in?
I'm not sure that I'm qualified to answer that question. I think without question that people are overanalyzed at times, and I think that sometimes people have I think that, and this may sound like an old-timer who's kind of silly in this day and age, I think that we just have a lot of people who are unwilling to just knuckle down and accept the hard knocks of life and to plow on in and to keep going. I know that at the last draft of the National Football League, that they had to have grief counselors present for the football players who did not get accepted into the team that they wanted or weren't chosen as quickly as they had hoped. And I think this is typical of a little typical of the wimpy attitude that we have in life today, that we just got to be counseled for everything that comes along. And, you know, growing up in the Depression and living as a kid through the Second World War and living through the hardships since then, certainly we need grief counseling and we need some help. But there's too much analyzing going on, in my opinion, in today's world, instead of just buckling down and tackling life and hitting it head on and moving forward.
Yeah, I agree with that. Very well said. All right, our next one comes from Dale in the chat room, asking, does the church look at stigmata as possessions? I'm
not sure I understand the question.
You know, the stigmata, you know, the case of someone showing the signs, the piercings of Christ, and do you know if the church looks at this, kind of a debate going in the chat room there for a minute about, you know, does the church look at this as a type of possession or a gift?
I am certain that there are going to be some very well-meaning Christians and church leaders in all kinds of denominations that will take both sides of this issue. And I would not I wouldn't have an opinion on this, and I don't think that this outward sign, one way or the other, would be an indication, a certain indication that either a person is gifted or possessed one way or the other. I think there would be other things that would determine that, and not the outward manifestation of these things.
Yeah, very, very fair answer. Very fair. Now, you know, we're talking about kind of going back to a little bit of the exorcism themselves, and I don't think we really got into it, but I know it points out in the book definitely that even after the exorcism, that it's important that the individual continue with you know, some kind of therapy, and that, you know, once it's done, it's not said and done. I mean, the evil spirit, the demon, can return if that individual lets their guard down. They have to stay strong and continue with some type of therapy, right?
Yes, one of the questions that I get asked frequently is, if a demon's cast out, what keeps the demon from coming right back in? And my question is, and my answer is, the person who has had the demon exorcised is the key to this. And in most instances, that person has been so miserable for so long that once that demon is cast out, he or she will do everything possible to keep that demon out. And just like a person who has been an alcoholic and belongs to Alcoholics Anonymous, when they get in trouble, they'll call somebody to talk them through and to help them. The person who has been possessed and has had the demon cast out of them will be so excited about life that they will continue with counseling, and they will have especially a good spiritual advisor at hand, on call, and they will need that help depending upon the individual, how long that will continue to be a problem.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, we have another question here coming from Stacy, and I think this is a good question. It definitely touches on it in Sinister Among Us, when Father Bronson is, you know, explaining to Bradley Green about the exorcism, and that the individual also has to want it to happen. And Stacy is asking, so what if the person's spiritual beliefs are not enough to battle these demons? Is this not a trick of the dark spirit you might be fighting to make them think that they're weak and can't fight it?
Well, the whole idea of an exorcism is that, in fact, these are military terms that are used the word exorcism comes as a military term, and it means to be dragged away. It means to take by force away. And so what you have here is the thought that most people are not able, they are not strong enough spiritually to cast out this demon, to drag it away, to force it out, to push it away. And so this is why you have a team of people working together, helping this person. Now, it won't work if I go to an exorcist and say, a good friend of mine or a member of my family is demon-possessed, and I want you to cast that demon out. That's not going to work. The person, just like the alcoholic, the person must want that demon cast out and must say, this is something I want to happen, and this is something I'm going to go along with. Now, maybe in the midst of the exorcism, the person will change its mind, will change his or her mind, will fight against you. That's not really the person. That's the demon that is fighting to keep this person under its control. But the person has to want in the beginning for this to happen. And exorcism is basically a spiritual matter. The thing that a demon fears more than anything else is the presence of Jesus or the presence of holy water. Holy water being water that is set apart, blessed, and made sacred for a particular purpose. And some people would think holy water, the very conservative person will think holy water actually should come from the River Jordan where Jesus was baptized, but it's water that is set aside. The demon will do anything to keep away from the words of Jesus, the power of Jesus, and the power of holy water. And so many times the person just isn't able to do this, but the team is able to do it. But the person must, in the beginning, believe that it's possible for the team working with Jesus to cast out the demon. Does that answer the question?
I believe so. Yeah, I definitely think so. All right, we have a lot of questions coming through the chat room, so wonderful. Another one from Kathy. Does a demonologist have any certain religion, or are they more spiritual?
A true student of demonology would be a scholar and not necessarily a religious person. I happen to be an ordained minister. I would not have to be an ordained minister to be a scholar of demonology. My role is to study demonology, to understand Satan and demons, and I think it probably helps because I am an ordained minister, but it can hinder because sometimes your religious beliefs will interfere with your scholarship. And so a true demonologist is concerned about the scholarly approach of it and not the religious approach of it.
Mm-hmm. And I guess this kind of ties into another question that just come through from Dell. Saying, does it matter in the exorcism if the person is of a different faith or a different religion?
No, not at all. Now we haven't hit upon this yet, but I think this question leads us to this. There is no question in my research and in my conclusions that the Roman Catholic Church is the leader in the study of demonology and in the performance of exorcism. People don't realize that the previous Pope, John Paul II, issued a papal edict in the early 90s that every diocese in the world must have a qualified, certified exorcist. Now, every diocese doesn't have one, but supposedly the smaller dioceses that don't have the resources, the people, or the money will have an association with a neighboring diocese. But supposedly every Roman Catholic diocese has a qualified exorcist available. People don't realize that if an exorcism is approved by the Roman Catholic Church, that it is required a written transcript of that exorcism, just like the written transcript of a court trial is kept. And that has been for hundreds of years that the Roman Catholic Church has required that to happen. And now many of them are videotaped as well as handwritten transcripts. And the Roman Catholic Church trains and certifies exorcists. It has been my experience that if somebody believes that they are demon-possessed and that they are in need of an exorcism, that regardless of their faith, a Catholic exorcist is effective in casting out that demon, whether they're a Baptist or a Presbyterian or a Methodist or whatever. That a qualified exorcist can cast a demon out of anybody of another faith.
Oh. All right. Well, kind of along those lines, coming from Kathy again here in the chat room, does the Pope have the ability to do an exorcism?
I cannot answer that. I can tell you that this current Pope has just appointed. I mentioned that the previous Pope was most interested in having qualified exorcists. I can tell you that the current Pope has set as a goal to have more qualified and trained exorcists, and has appointed a particular person in the Vatican to be in charge of the task of recruiting and training exorcists. I know that the Roman Catholic Church believes that you should be trained as an exorcist in order to do it. I just have to tell you, I'm not certain whether the Pope would consider himself as a trained exorcist, though I would think that in the Roman Catholic Church that the Holy Father would be considered qualified to do any of these things. But I don't know that for a fact. I am not Catholic. I am a Protestant, but I have great respect for what the Catholics have done in the field of demonology.
And just so you know, I don't know why. We still have about 10 minutes left, but the show just all of a sudden quit streaming live. We still are recording in the archive, so I am not sure. It just stopped. A lot of people in the chat room saying that it did. Blog Talk having some issues there, but we will still be in the archive. So like I said, we have about 10 minutes, so we're definitely going to finish up here. And, I have to say, there was a lot of great questions coming from the chat room there. It seems like a lot of people very interested in demonology and the possibility of its existence and its role, within the world. Does it seem to you to play a major role in some of the world events, especially some of that we're seeing going on today, with the war in Iraq?
Well, one of the interesting things is that interest in demonology ebbs and flows. And when everything is good, nobody's interested in demonology. It's when there are hard times. It's when people are struggling to get meaning out of life. It's in the midst of human tragedy, epidemics, death, terrible storms, wars, things like this. Then people begin to say, well, is Satan involved in all of this? So there's no question that right now the interest in demonology has come back full force. It has peaked, as you think, especially of the terrible terrorist movements and the things that terrorists do. And we're not now trying to pin this upon any religious faith, but just the cruelty and the terrorism that we see in various parts of the world. And certainly when you think of the things that Saddam Hussein and his sons did, going into to bridal parties and raping the bride in the presence of all the guests, things like that. Demonology sparks, and people say, is man really this evil? So there's no question that what you have brought up, the interest in Satan and his ability to influence world affairs, is this happening today? There's no question that is a question that many people are asking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, most definitely. Because a lot of people really feel the world is heading downwards. We see a lot of issues, and all war, environmental issues. It's definitely all over the place. Now, I wanted to say there was a chapter in here that I really enjoyed. It was near the end of the book, and the reason why I enjoyed it because of the way it was written. And I just kind of wanted to point this out. And it was the chapter where it's the start in the epilogue a little bit, chapter 98, where you actually wrote the chapter as if it was news stories. And I thought that was an interesting way that you've done that. What made you kind of write that chapter that way?
Well, I don't know exactly. I just had that idea. The story ends, and these news stories appear 10 years later. And until you read those news stories, you really don't have all the answers to the mystery. And you end the story maybe a little disappointed, and then you go to the epilogue, and you find in this grandfather's scrapbook all of these articles that reveal the answers to the questions. It was just my wife is a graduate of the journalism school of the University of Missouri, as is my youngest daughter, and my uncle, my great uncle was in the newspaper business, and I just have always had an interest in newspapers, and so I just had the idea and put it in that way. Had a lot of fun.
I bet so, because I really enjoyed that because you're right. It starts kind of really getting you into the mysteries and the questions that you have up to that point, and it's like reading a bunch of newspaper articles. And I just found that it was fun to read. It was kind of very interesting doing it that way, and I just really wanted to kind of point that out.
One of the interesting things in doing those articles was the change in English, where up until then I had used the the University of Chicago Manual of Style, which you use for much writing. But when I got to the newspaper articles, I had to use the Associated Press style book to write the articles as though they would actually appear, using the abbreviations and the style and the punctuations that you would use in a newspaper article. So it was interesting to have to change the style when I got to that portion of the book.
Mm-hmm. Well, if you'll give us the website, once again, and any way that, or any other websites you have, or any way that individuals can pick up this book, Sinister Among Us. Like I said, I really enjoyed reading the book, and I really hope our listeners, sound like some of them were very interested and maybe going to go out and pick it up. So let's let them know where they can do so.
SinisterAmongUs.com is the website, or you can go to WilliamBBradshaw.com, and that will get you there. But once you get there, it will show you where you can purchase the book. You can get it at major bookstores. You can get it at directly from the publisher. You can get it online. There are various ways that you can get it. And also on the website, it has a question and answer section, tells a little bit about my beliefs of demonology, and also will tell what some other people have come to believe about it. So,
right.
Yes, go on.
Well, I was just going to say, and if anyone has any trouble finding any of this, we do have all this linked off of our website, www.shadowsanddarkradio.com, just to make it a little easier if anybody has any kind of trouble.
People tell me that a very easy way to get the book is on Amazon.com. If you have any trouble getting it through a publisher, just go to Amazon.com and you'll get it in a hurry.
All right, wonderful. And we just a couple minutes left here. Is there anything that we may have not went over that you really want to get out there?
Well, you can tell this is a very complicated subject, and we could talk. I was worried if we'd have enough to talk about in a 2-hour time, and we could probably talk another 2 hours, and people are beginning to send in the questions. No, I think that the important thing to realize is that this is a real subject, that it deserves real attention, and that it's important to put all your preconceived notions and ideas in the background and to come to the subject of demonology with a fresh view of trying to truly find the truth of the situation. And you've been a very gracious host tonight, Jeremiah, and you've certainly asked important questions and bent over backwards to make this study of demonology available to your listeners. Thank you very much.
Well, you are most welcome, and I enjoyed it. Well, 150%. It was just such a very interesting show, and it really seems like the listeners enjoyed it as well. So I thank you so much for coming on, and I hope you'll join us again at some point in the future.
I will sure try to do so.
All right. Well, William, you have a good night, and I'm sure we'll probably stay in touch with each other.
And good night to you, Jeremiah.
All right. Thank you so much.
Yes.
All right, that was Dr. William Bradshaw, and his book is Sinister Among Us. I really encourage you to check it out. It is a great book. Like I said, it's that mix of fact and fiction. It is very, very interesting book, and you can learn from it. You can definitely learn, some of the basics of demonology, and it is very well put together. I mean, I really thoroughly enjoyed reading this book. So make sure to check that out. Like I said, SinisterAmongUs.com is a great place to find some more information on it. You can pick it up at Amazon. We have all this linked from our website, www.shadowsanddarkradio.com. If you have any trouble, just go there and check it out. Now, this Sunday, we are not broadcasting this Sunday because it is Father's Day. I am a father of 4, so I will be spending the time with my children, and we usually try not to broadcast on or around holidays, and so we will not be broadcasting this Sunday. Now, we will be back our regular time, our regular day on Thursday, and let's just see who we've got coming up, because I think yes, this Thursday, you do not want to miss this show, because it is going to be a little bit crazy. He has been on the show before with us, and we're going to have Mr. Lobo from Cinema Insomnia. This guy is just hilarious. He has a show, like I said, it's called Cinema Insomnia, where he plays a lot of cult movies, and it is great. He is such a hilarious guy, so you do not want to miss this show. We are really looking forward to this. I'm excited about this. I know we've had a lot of other listeners who are excited about Mr. Lobo rejoining us for another night of wackiness and some humor, some comedy, and some serious talk. That's the thing. This is it's going to be a very mixed show, so make sure that you are definitely tuned in for that. Well, I want to thank everyone for joining us tonight, especially all those who were in the chat room. Bambi, Dell, Welcome Spirits, Debbie, Kathy. Let's see who else we had in here. Man, we had so many. Black Magic Woman. Jamie was there. The list goes on and on. Kind of everybody's moved on out as we lost a little bit of our airtime there. And I want to apologize for the issues we had tonight. Seems like Blog Talk was having quite a few. But again, thank you everyone for joining us tonight. Make sure to join us this Thursday, 10 p.m. Eastern Time, as we welcome Mr. Lobo from Cinema Insomnia. So we will see you then. And always remember to be watchful of those shadows in the dark.
Shadows in the dark.